Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a beautiful 10th of May. That's right, 2024. Come to the podcast, episode 278. Rest in peace, Mr. Rex Murphy, an iconic Canadian journalist, a realist, and just an all-around decent guy, has passed away. So a little tribute for him. And, of course, the CBC is up to its old antics again when it comes to taxpayers' money. Bonuses, layoffs, and other BS for our listening and viewing pleasure. Oh my God. What's the world coming to, ladies and gentlemen? Listener and viewer discretion is advised because I might swear, I might smoke a cigarette and make a funny face or two in the name of our poor, terrible leadership. All that more come up the show. Please stick around. Oh, yeah. Still there? Cool. All right.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast, a Canadian veteran's point of view on political, social, economic issues and life. Here's Crusty.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 278 of the Crusty Canuck podcast. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. Yes, as the title says, rest in peace, Mr. Rex Murphy, Canadian iconic writer and journalist extraordinaire. And, of course, the CBC pushing more of their BS on us ignorant plebes. Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. Welcome to the show. If you like and hear what you see, please click like, subscribe, share this content all over your social media platforms if you can. I'm not going to force you to, but the more you do, the better algorithm gets out there. More Canadians get their voices out, and more vets such as myself and other of my friends get their words out too. And this podcast is also brought to you in part by and supported by the Veterans for Freedom Network. That's right. Veterans for Freedom Stand 2. And coming soon, Veterans for Freedom TV. That's right. You'll be seeing my show, other shows, all that good stuff. Stay tuned to the internet for updates on that as it comes, ladies and gentlemen. Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. Hope you all had a couple of days. I've been busy myself. Lots of work, getting the bills paid, all that good stuff, and just trying to keep things in check to the best of our abilities, ladies and gentlemen. And it can be tough, but hey, them's the breaks. Weather's been pretty warm out, so you're probably wondering why I'm still wearing a toque. It's all part of my shtick, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, if you do like and hear what you see, please click like, subscribe, share this podcast all over your social media platforms, and you can find the Crusty Canuck podcast wherever you find fine podcasts today. Yes, okay, I'm digressing. Anyhow, like I said, Tyler Crow said, Rex Murphy, Canadian icon. My American audience out there, he's up there. I could say, yeah, I'll compare him to Walter Cronkite. I'll compare him to, let's say, Peter Jennings and other great American broadcasters. I grew up with Rex Murphy. You know, I remember watching the CBC with my parents when the CBC had something valuable to say or something to promote. And Rex Murphy always had his editorials. And I remember the countless satire that was made because of him. I think Wayne and Schuster did a parody of him. When This Hour Had 22 Minutes was actually a funny TV series. Mark Critch, Canadian comedian, made fun of him. But needless to say, he was a very well-educated man. He spent some time at Oxford. The quintessential writer, as far as how else do you describe a man that's just written some great things and done some great editorials? A Canadian hero is gone. 77 years old, passed away yesterday from cancer. I had no idea the man was sick, but, some people keep things private, and rightfully so. I remember watching him with Jordan Peterson, other politicians, and asking the tough questions. And he had a great conversation with Jordan Peterson in regards to the whole woke isms and the plight of Canadian politics as we see it today. I think it was last year. He had to sit down and talk with him, and it was just a great discussion. So Rex Murphy, you will be sorely missed. You icon of a human being. I really enjoyed your work. I really enjoyed your editorials, and it's a damn shame. I kind of wish you stuck around to see the results of a next election if it was going to happen. I know your disdain and your mistrust for the liberal brand that Trudeau Jr. has put together for all of us here. But good journeys to you, sir, and my condolences to your family and to everyone who loved you. All I can say is, yeah, you'll be missed, sir. What I'll do, ladies and gentlemen, I will read his last article that he wrote for the National Post And it's really, really descriptive in how he dissects how our beloved Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, yes, has treated individuals in this country since October 7th. Yeah, I'm talking about the Jewish people and the plight that's been going on since then. I'll summarize some of it. It's a 6-minute read, so I will read the whole article for you. So if you end up falling asleep during my show, my apologies. But I just have to give this man a good tribute because he's really woken up a lot of people to the plight of the way things are going in this country and North America, to the world, and just some really, really good insight. He comes from humble beginnings too. So he was not born rich. He was not born wealthy. He comes from basically a blue collar background of Newfoundland, and he paid his dues. So I think the best way to contribute to him is read his work and promote it to the best of our abilities, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just cue this up here after this fantastic message. As always, but I know it's just a damn shame we lost another icon because there's not too many journalists like him that are still around today that are really in-depth and really get to the truth. A lot of independent journalists out there that do it, but not to the same caliber as Mr. Rex Murphy. I'll show you right after this.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to episode 278 of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Rest in peace, Mr. Rex Murphy. And of course, the CBC BSing us again. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck, and I'll just cue up here the article for you all and prepare to listen and observe. Take notes if you want to. Just kidding. But it's just been some interesting times, and he nails it too. So how else do I say it? I'll read it along. I'll keep this article posted in my description for you all, and you can read it at your leisure. If you want to listen, by all means, listen. So needless to say, I'll cue this up here. And this was the last thing he wrote, apparently, before he passed away. So, excuse me, it's kind of a special article. He wrote this on the 7th, and he passed away yesterday on the 9th. So, Rex Murphy, Trudeau faced an essential moral test after October 7th. He failed it. Our loudly, proudly self-proclaimed first male feminist prime minister was silent on the horrid tortures and rapes of Israeli women. So, dated the 7th of May, 2024. So, on October 7th, cowardly medieval murder cult campus heroes Hamas took the lives of over 1,200 Jews. Without warning, at a music festival, toyed with beating every Jew they could find, hunted them down, tormented them, raped them, shot them. A great incident, orgastic jubilation over a massacre of innocent Jews of an intensity of enormity, not seen the domestic practice of Jew-hating, Jew-destroying Nazism. The greatest puncture in that useless lying balloon of never again, quote unquote, since that failed slogan was first muttered, Jews massacred in their homeland, Jews killed again. Hamas is a squalid tradition. There's a lot of Himmler in Hamas. There was also a deep cruelty, the sadism of taking hostages, ripping families asunder if they did not kill them, scooping up babies, young children, keeping a special eye out for pretty girls, dragging over 250 innocent people of all ages to Hamas' web of dirt tunnels. How could a man look in the eyes of a 10-month-old infant and sunder him from his family? How could men rape and beat so many female hostages? October 7th was an enormity, I say again, on a historic scale, or an equivalent atrocity to have fallen on Muslims somewhere in the West. This world of ours would be spinning into the sun on the strength of universal and ferocious denunciations. But hey, this was Israel. Those killed, raped, and kidnapped were Jews. Jews lived in Israel. So this runs on a totally different moral and political plateau. The ambush of unarmed civilians on that October 7th demanded, and still demands, a clarion statement from our leaders of totally unambiguous support for Israel, a visit to relations of those killed and those still hoping for release of their family members held hostage. And they're still hostages, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Where has Justin Trudeau been? Where's the utter denunciation of Hamas and those complicit with Hamas in mass murder, mass rape, and mass kidnapping? And where was Mr. Trudeau's message to the green flag flying activists that Israel is not genocidal, an accusation ludicrous, lying, and insolent at the same time? After his clumsy, incompetent, amateur eight-year holiday as prime minister, our country, Canada, is diminished on the world stage and worrisome, scattered, and incohesive on the home front. Canada has, quote unquote, no core values, according to the one person most responsible for nursing the core values of the nation. And so the world has no sense of where Canada really stands because we really don't have a stand. And by Trudeau's lights, our post-nationalist Canada, quote unquote, of no core values, quote unquote, just by definition alone has nothing to say. In brackets query, should a post-nationalist state have a seat at the UN or the United Nations? Are pride parades and infatuation with global warming enough to fuse a great country into one magnificent union? Don't think so. But that's really all we've seen from Mr. Trudeau. Political cowardice, the fear of losing some of the Muslim vote, has Trudeau and Joly responding to anti-Semitism by dusting off tattered platitudes. This is not who we are as Canadians, or some equally flaccid slogan crafted by a herd of consultants and speechwriters. That's the thing. The Trudeau government does love his consultants, right? Fuck it, they pay enough of them. He has no moral force to exert. He has no high presence in the world's leadership. His flightly antics and frequent displays of incompetence have left him an isolate on the world platform. Essentially, his sad record internationally is unintellectually, his mind is not overclouded with ideas, and the obsessional tie to global warming fantasies. Serious leaders may mouth the words these days, but the global warming juggernaut is bogged down, have combined to place him outside the adults who do rule the nations of the world. He is no one's wise man. I hear that U of T, a Jew, must show proof of anti-Israel beliefs to be allowed in his or her own campus. I hear that have been firebombing at synagogues and hate graffiti. I hear that individual Jews have been harassed and threatened. It would be so interesting to see the response of these phenomena if it were, say, Muslims instead of Jews who are bearing the freight of atavistic hate and murderous intent. To see a Muslim professor get barred from his office on a Toronto campus, or a black feminist specializing in colonialism having her speech drowned out. What a world of difference the coverage would show. What intense concern. And this difference, everyone already knows it to be true. Or to switch examples, it's the same when 10 or 30 or 60 Christian churches are burned in Canada. Burning churches, while highly undesirable, is, we have been told from the highest Canadian political level, nonetheless, quote unquote, understandable. Remember when Mr. Gerald Butt said that? Yeah. There's one particular dimension of the horrid acts of October 7th that cries for particular notice. One area in which the failure of Justin Trudeau's egregious and collapse of his most visible values and must be both obvious and depressing to his own partisans. We never did get to hear our loudly, proudly self-proclaimed first male feminist prime minister show any serious extended response to the horrid tortures, beatings, rapes, kidnappings, and murder of Israeli women, girls, and infants. Remember, because a lot of people don't seem to want to remember, this was an unprovoked mass killing by armed and hate-saturated Palestinians. As the records and films show, quote unquote, they filmed their own bestiality. They took special and malignant pleasure from the horrors, rape, and murder of Jewish women. Women as children, teenagers, parents, and elderly. Hamas loves to hate women. Up yours, Hamas. What my male feminist PM kept you from taking the podium in your blackest denunciation mode? Where, most progressive, all progressive PMs, was your soul-tormented outcry that women and girls were being raped and beaten, their dead and mutilated bodies put in exhibit to cheering Palestinians, and for the girls kidnapped to serve as hostages and, quote-unquote, sexual relief for the criminals of Hamas? This was sexism at the murder and torture level. This was feminism, Hamas style. All of which comes to the sad point that our own universities and streets are now venues for the vilest anti-Semitism. Jews in Canada are, and rightly are, fearful. Where are the assurances, explicitly stated and backed by every state authority, that anti-Semitism will, when applicable, be punished? Or at the very least, those who practice it be placed in ostracism and scorned? After 8 years as Prime Minister, Trudeau is presented with a singular, historic, and essential moral choice to make. He has a moment to make clear to the world what that choice is. The choice is to stand with democratic Israel, to rebuke the insolent lies about genocide and apartheid, to name Hamas for the total sadistic villain it is, to scream to the world condemning the defilement, rape, and murder of Israeli women and girls, and to dismiss the moronic and morally unstable students on the Canadian campuses and their infatuation with terrorist organizations. Sorry, Rex, you should have mentioned those communist bastards too, nonetheless. And beyond all the furiously condemned anti-Semitism, and have no truck at all with those who harbor that diseased practice of the world's most hateful losers. Do you think he'll make that choice? Those choices? Not very likely. There are plastic bags to ban, military men's rooms to be stocked with tampons, gay monuments to plan. All these greatly surpass in Trudeau's world some distant friction in the history of Middle East and their minor discomforts. Yeah, priorities. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I'll read that again. Well, I'll read that paragraph again. Do you think he'll make that choice? Those choices? Not very likely. There are plastic bags to ban, military men's rooms to be stocked with tampons, gay monuments to plan. All these greatly surpass in Trudeau's world some distant friction in the history, Middle East, and the minor discomforts. It's kind of sad that Mr. Murphy had to leave on that note. But needless to say, ladies and gentlemen, he makes a valid point. Where are the priorities here? If the tables were turned, what would happen? If the tables were turned, what would happen to us? What would happen to you? What would happen to our neighbors, our friends, right? If you look at some news footage from Calgary, the Calgary police have broken up some of the protests at the campuses there too. Full riot gear pushing these people off. Like I've said numerous times, ladies and gentlemen, I'm all for freedom of speech, demonstrate freedom of expression. But we're seeing the dynamic shift here in our priorities and our leadership alike. So I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care if you're Jewish. I don't care if you're Christian. You practice whatever faith is good for you. You go by your light and you let it shine as bright as you want to. But the moment you take favor for what Hamas did, I think everything you believe in will come to a crashing halt. And you're going to have to get a dose of reality one way or the other.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And you're back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 278 of the Crusty Canuck podcast. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. Thank you once again to all those kind comments. I got my last video. And if you like to hear what you see, please click like and subscribe. This is episode 278. Rest in peace, Mr. Rex Murphy. And the CBC is BSing us again. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. So if you like to hear what you see, please click like, subscribe, share this content all over social media platforms. Once you see this video, whether it be you see it on Rumble or on the Tube or anywhere else, please give me a like, give me a comment. Keep the algorithm going. Help us Canucks get our words out there, all because of you wonderful people, all you wonderful, awesome people. You know, you guys are great. I am really grateful for some of the comments and some of the downloads I've had, especially off my Podbean application. I want to thank my American listeners, my British listeners, Nigerian listeners, Estonian listeners, Latvian listeners. I had some Russian listeners too, Chinese listeners, and my Aussie listeners, and my Canadians, my fellow Canadians, my wonderful Canadians. Thank you very much to everyone who has downloaded my show. Please keep subscribing, liking, all that good stuff. Help us Canucks get our words out there so Bill C-63 does not come to fruition. Keep the censorship out of Canada. Big time. Anyway, before I get too emotional and have a moment or two, we'll carry on with the rest of the podcast. So the CBC is crying poor, basically. They're handing more BS to the masses in regards to how much money they need, how much more garbage they need. And Catherine Tate, the president of CBC and Radio Canada, to my français listeners, écouteurs, she lives in New York. She lives in Brooklyn, New York. So this lady doesn't even live in Canada. I know she's a Canadian citizen, but she spends her time at her home in Brooklyn and then, you know, calling the shots in Toronto at CBC headquarters. So I got a story here from Lauren Gunter. Excellent writer, you know, very pro, how do you say? Very pro anti-bullshit. He's extremely anti-bullshit. But needless to say, he does a good editorial on Catherine Tate's plight or blight in regards to how much money these executives get. Now, this year, based on the budget, okay, you've heard me rant about the budget before, the CBC will be getting an additional $42 million in taxpayer funds. Now, to my American listeners out there, the CBC is a state broadcast. It works in the same principles, kind of what the BBC does in Britain, okay? There is some private money that goes into it. Some people do invest in it, but it's basically a crown corporation, which means it's totally funded by the government. Okay. Now, the CBC has lost money since 2015 with advertisement and low viewership, probably because they put on subpar programming. Okay. They've ruined Hockey Night in Canada. All right. They've ruined a lot of good up and coming shows. They've bastardized a lot of Canadian content. And they really, really promote a lot of wokey, pokey, jokey BS. Okay. And when they talk about misinformation and disinformation, how many times have you heard that excuse before, right? They're the front runners of it. They are probably the biggest gaslighting media outlet in North America, next to CNN. Okay. And I've seen the shift in the past 10 years, how things go. I actually used to watch some decent shows in the CBC at one time. You've heard me rant about this before, ladies and gentlemen. I remember as a kid watching Wayne and Schuster, Beachcombers, frickin' there's a show called Seeing Things about a guy who had some deja vu kind of powers, and it was kind of cool, kind of comedic too. They used to have some great content for kids and people of all ages. It used to be some decent dramas that used to be on, right? So with all the money that CBC is getting, how come they cannot make a great drama series? You know, they've got a few, you know, that have some popularity, just enough to keep them going. But how about some real hard drama? How about a cop drama? Right? How about that? There's an idea. Put your money where your mouth is there, CBC. Put your taxpayers' money where your mouth is. And let the taxpayers have some good quality fucking television. But no, you don't want to see that. So I'll cue up the video here that Lauren Gunter has done just to prove my point and the point of a lot of the Canadians out there that are really disappointed with how the CBC is going and how it's been turning people off the past 10 years. I just, I don't know, because my wife and I, we don't watch CBC anymore. Sometimes we might get some editorials. Sometimes we might get a story. I've shared some CBC articles on my podcast, but it's really nothing to cry about, honestly. But ladies and gentlemen, you decide.
Catherine Tate, the haughty, detached, pompous president of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, appeared before the Commons Heritage Committee on Tuesday. And she peddled the same line she peddled there in February, and that is, the CBC doesn't pay bonuses. Conservative MP said, how can you be cutting 800 jobs at the CBC and still paying all your executives bonuses? Tate said, oh my goodness, we do not pay bonuses. We pay performance incentives. It's the same thing. Arose by any other name. If you are being paid for your job, and the CBC pays very generously the people who work there, if you're being paid to perform your job, that's your performance pay. If you get something on top of that at the end of the year, that's a bonus. And I'll tell you why I know that this is what the CBC also thinks internally. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation has done tremendous work uncovering the bonuses paid by the CBC since the Liberals came to power in 2015. Last year, they found that the CBC paid 1,100 of its 7,700 employees bonuses. That's an average of about $14,000 each, or nearly $15 million. Now, Tate was going to come to the Heritage Committee this week to plead poverty. Oh, my goodness. The Liberals are only giving us $1.4 billion a year. How can you expect us to survive on that? And they've cut 800 jobs, despite the fact that they're getting a subsidy from taxpayers of $1.4 billion a year. They've cut their local TV broadcasts back a huge amount. Now you get one newscast a day from the CBC, from your local region, and even many of those are going the way of the dodo. The CBC does not provide national service on any kind of level that it used to, but it's going to give all of its executives, all 1,100 of them, bonuses. We're waiting until Friday of this week to find out how much they were given most recently, but you can bet that it's still in the range of around $14,000 a year. Does your employer give you $1,200 extra a month and then say, no, that's not a bonus, it's performance pay? Of course they don't. Nobody does that. And nobody could believe what Tate was saying. She is a serial dissembler. She doesn't like being called a liar. One of the Conservative MPs called her a liar, and that is a harsh word. So let's call her a dissembler. She takes a word, she tries to hide its meaning, she uses a different phrase for exactly the same thing. The CBC pays bonuses to about 1,100 of its 7,700 employees. And those bonuses average around $1,200 a month. That's pretty substantial. Now, I don't watch the CBC and I don't listen to the CBC. Occasionally I will catch a hockey game, and the only place I can watch it is on CBC, and then I have to concede and give up my boycott. But I won't watch their news coverage because I do not think it's fair. I think it's horribly one-sided. And yet Tate still says the CBC is the best organ Canada has to combat disinformation. No, it's not. It pumps out its own disinformation, and I won't watch it, and I won't listen to it, and I deeply resent having to contribute the $1.4 billion a year that they get from tax dollars. For Post Media, I'm Lauren Gunter.
Yeah. So $14,000 a year if you're an executive must be nice. So $1,200 extra a month to do what? Oh, it's not a bonus. It's performance. Yeah, BS. It's a bonus. You're skimming, right? A lot of skimming going on these days. A lot of skimming going on with people's money, taxpayers' money, right? Taxpayers' money going out to CRA because you got to file your taxes every year, and yet there's 232 employees in the Canadian Revenue Agency who have been fired or investigated still for double dipping during the pandemic. And CBC execs sitting there rewarding themselves for subpar effort. So there's a great sense of entitlement out there that's being exposed. Recently, public service unions are sitting there demanding better work atmospheres, better offices, because they're being forced to work 3 days out of the week in their offices. Oh, it must be hard. You actually got to report to your job and do your job at the office 3 days out of the week. Oh, the humanity. Oh, how dare you? There are people that climb hydro poles and towers and dig big, big holes to make sure that plumbing is working, to make sure power is working. When we had those cold snaps this winter, there were a lot of people driving the highways, making sure the lights are still working, heat is still going for people that are paying for it. And people at the CBC are getting bonuses. And public union service workers are upset because they have to go to work at their office 3 days out of the week. Well, when I do my shift, okay, I'll let you know this here, okay? Wait for it. I get up at 4 in the morning. I get ready to go to work, report for 6, get my trucks ready, help out my coworkers as best I can, and start feeding cattle. When that's done, I do maintenance, and I sweep, I might move some manure, I might move some clay, I use a bobcat, use a dump truck, use a feed truck. Sometimes I use a tractor, other times I do maintenance. So it's a pretty long day. It's about a 10-hour day. Everything goes right, it's about a 10-hour day. I drive a half hour home, okay? So I drive a half hour to, half hour back. I get a decent pay. other Canadians were living paycheck to paycheck. So it's getting difficult. And what annoys me is that you have these executives who pay taxpayer dollars. Doesn't matter if you're CBC, you get more executives who work for the public service union, whatever, public service workers, okay? And they're complaining about having to go to work 3 days out of the week because they want remote work or because they don't want the impact of the environment or they want the impact here. Here's a fucking impact for you. How about some reality? Okay? If you're going to accept taxpayer dollars as payment, you better do your goddamn job. That's simple. Now, before I get mad, I just want to say thank you once again to everybody who subscribed and downloaded and commented on my show. And this has been another episode of the Crusty Podcast, episode 278. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, rest in peace, Mr. Rex Murphy. Good journey to you, sir. And of course, the CBC just BS's us again. I hope all of you is good things. I had a long day, so a lot of this information is just jumble. But wish nothing but the best for you all. Oh, God. Weather's getting better, so it's getting a bit warmer. Like I said earlier, people ask me, why do you still wear that toque, Crusty? Because it's part of my shtick. I know I'll take it off shortly, but still, it's all part of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Just hope I've entertained and informed you as well as I could. I will be back again Sunday for another episode, ladies and gentlemen. So, like I said, I want to keep these episodes going 3 times a week, Tuesday and Sunday, between 7 p.m. and between 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Look for the Crusty Podcast on YouTube and Podbean and all those other great channels, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say thank you once again to all my downloaders and subscribers. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Well done. Here's all. Keep sharing, keep commenting, all that good stuff. When you see my premiere, please give me a thumbs up. Like going, keep the algorithm going. Too. Like I said, this has been episode 270 of the Crusty Podcast. This beautiful 10th of May, 2024. Wish nothing but good things for you all there, ladies and gentlemen. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Help your neighbors out in these trying times. Do what you can. And, keep our chins up and just try to be good to people. Regardless of the play of the world, just try to be good. Try to be realistic. And, like I always say, ladies and gentlemen, humanity merit wins the day. Take care, and I'll see you this Sunday. Bye for now.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. Yes, sir. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
This has been another episode of the Crusty Canuck Podcast. Stay sane and thank you for listening. From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck Podcast.
I'm so happy I could just shit.